flip out of here at 7. So we're going to do we're going to do the first part, recess at 7. Don't say it, please. Don't say it. We will call the May 28th meeting of Caroline County Board of Supervisors to order. Let the record state that all supervisors are here. At this time, I'm going to ask Mr. Seeley if he will deliver the invocation.
Please stand. Heavenly Father, in these days of incidences across the country, citizens being injured, fellow countrymen having their houses destroyed, look down upon us all and guide us through these troubling times. And guide those of us who have gathered tonight to carry through the journey which we must progress through tonight, and help us make the best decisions we can for the citizens around us. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. You'll join me with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Mr. Cully, do we have any amendments to the agenda?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I had one, which was actually Mr. Curlings, Ron Curlings from the VFW. I think I got it right that time. I would say American Legion, so it's VFW. It's supposed to be here at either 6:30 or 7:30. So we'll add a presentation from Mr. Curlings then. No other amendments to the agenda. The agenda will stand as submitted. Mr. Black, do you have any opening board comments?
None at this time.
Mr. Seeley, opening
None at
board
this
comments.
time, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Underwood.
No, sir, Mr. Chairman, not this time.
Mr. Akers?
No, sir.
Mr. Taylor?
I do not.
Okay. In that case, I just have a couple. One, I wanted to acknowledge the Memorial Day services that I attended at AP Hill and at Bowling Green for the VFW. It was definitely my honor to pay tribute to those who made the supreme sacrifice, and I'd urge all of us to try to do something in that way. Next go around, the social services positions. I think all of us got that email, or it just came to me. There's 2 positions they're still looking for. Just came to me, and you? Okay, so we'll forward that out. They're looking for 2 positions, as they stated before. The cost for those 2 positions are $88,000 to the county, $20-some thousand to the state. So at some point in time, we need to consider that. That was before the 3% raise. Well, they'd be hired at whatever price. They wouldn't get the raise. So we have to, at some point in time, maybe later tonight, we'll deliberate that, or at least discuss that. And we haven't discussed or addressed the management of the radio system, whatever the final decision is. I'm sure we'll need to talk about that. So those are just a couple of things. Taking that on, we'll move on to our first order of business, which is a presentation from the CCEO. Mr. Satterwhite or Mr. Marmaduke? Okay, Mr. Marmaduke, you are coming here for the express purpose of discussing the
training standards.
And grandfathering.
That is correct.
The chief made some changes following the meeting that Mr. Seeley and I had with the Bowling Green and Sparta folks, and Mr. Underwood had a meeting with the Frog Level, and we sent those changes to the chief. He brought them back to us, and we said we should have those reviewed by you. And so tell us about the review.
We did review them on our meeting the 22nd, which would have been last Wednesday night. And we did go through and we looked at everything. Seemed to be all in place. We've got one little area that we was talking about, the grandfather, that we would like to see changed back, I guess, or maybe we didn't get it conveyed as the way we thought it was going to appear to be. I don't know. I think y'all had the form in y'all's packet the last time, but you don't this time. So, where it says district chiefs may hold this position under the grandfather clause until continuous election appointment to the position is ended, upon which future election appointment to an office or position must meet the current training standards in place. we looked and talked about that, and I think what we had thought about, or what we thought that it should be, is if you're grandfathered in as a district chief, you will always be able to come back and be a district chief and not have to meet the current standards. So it would be y'all's 10 years. Then if you were a district chief or a assistant district chief, the way we look at it, a chief is a chief, because if something would happen to a chief, which would kind of be like y'all's chairman,
Let's not try to make stuff happen already. Go ahead. Go ahead.
our assistant chief would fill in for him, so he should be, at that position as good as the chief should be, which I'm guessing, I'm kind of putting it as y'all's vice chairman would be able to fill in. So, and then
You're hoping so.
yeah, the lieutenants and the captains, we were good with that. In other words, as long as they served up to that captain's position and had the 10 years, they would be grandfathered into that position. If that makes sense to y'all, because in the back of it, he had there was a chart back here which is kind of really confusing because it's got like 3 blocks in it, and it has a grandfathered member, and you've got to be this, and officer, you've got to be this, and at this age, you've got to have these qualifications. So we were trying to make it a little bit more straightforward. So if you have 10 years in and have served in the position that you're in now or have been into that, you're grandfathered in or may be able to be voted back into that position. So if, i.e., our chief this year, and next year I decided that, they put me down to lieutenant or whatever, since I've got the 10 years in, I should be able to be grandfathered back into chief if I want to run 2 years from now, or they put me back up to run 2 years from now without having to meet the new training standard.
Now, have you talked directly to the chief or staff about this?
Have not, sir. We went over it last Wednesday. We have not talked to the chief yet about this.
Does that dialogue still exist, or does it not exist?
It does exist. It should exist. His meeting, correct me if I'm wrong, would be the second Wednesday in the month of June, when they go back over this to accept or do whatever they're going to do with it. So between now and then, as far as the CCO goes, I can get with him person to person to explain to him what we're kind of, trying to get across, or however we need to.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good process. It's, with the chief
Sure.
the chief came to us.
Sure.
And we just said, did the volunteers see all of this? Because I didn't want to rely on my interpretation.
Right.
And you hadn't, so we sent it to you. And I think in the future, we just need to make sure that you're talking, we got
Whole
fire
circle's
commission.
covered, yeah.
Exactly. And all of those folks need to be talking, because, quite honestly, I don't know everything or anything about volunteer
Sure.
service, fire and rescue. I rely on chief's expertise, who we pay a lot of money, and the volunteers who have a lot of experience.
Sure.
So I want you to get together and then tell me one thing, and that works out a lot better. So we'll work through that again to make sure. But if that's the only change you have, if you want to send it to the chief,
We can do that, and I
we'll-
can either send it in letter form or go letter form and talk to him.
you
Either
can go
way.
right over
Yeah.
there now and give him whatever you got. So-
Gotcha.
But the point is, we want you guys to work together so
Sure.
we can support you both.
Sure.
Okay? Any other questions on that? Ms. Black?
At your meeting on the 22nd, did you have all the volunteer departments there represented?
Everybody was represented. Well, I say not 6 out of the 9, and of course, I'm not exactly sure what's going on with one of ours right now, because Frog Hole Rescue, I'm not sure how that stands. So I'd say 6 out of the 8 active ones were there.
So we don't have, so your standards are unanimous among all volunteers, then? You're missing 2, is that correct?
Exactly.
Well, Frog Level Rescue doesn't exist
I'll say, as it stands, I guess it would have been 6 out of the 8 at the time, so.
Are there plans to meet with the other two, or discuss this with the other two?
Yes, they're aware of it. They got sent emails, or they know what happened, and as far as we've covered them. Lady Smith Rescue was one of them. Lady Smith Fire was one of them, and Stephen, I think, had something come up. And then Bowling Green Rescue did not appear.
Because the only reason why I say that is because I'm not sure that they're in agreement with that. So
Okay.
I would hope that everyone, the volunteers, would be in agreement before it went farther.
Mr. Chairman, we have on our agenda tonight the Emergency Services Commission again. And I'm wondering if we can't revisit the charter to that, because I think that brought a lot of structure to what we did in the past. And, some of this I think could have been resolved at that level had that been a route as well. And I guess what I'd like to see is, can we take a look at the old policy from 2010, 2009, somewhere in that time frame?
There was an Emergency Services Commission charter.
Right, that we changed in 2011, I believe. Right, 2010 maybe.
Right. Well, there was an original policy. What we're saying, time frames may be a little fuzzy, but in 2009, 2010, a policy existed. And I'm sure the volunteers, or maybe Mr. Garnett, who's been here through that whole time, has a copy or seen a copy. And then it was revised in 2011.
Right.
So you would like to look at that original policy from 2009 again?
Correct.
We can find that policy and we'll bring it back on the agenda on the 11th of June. I think we'll at least look at it. That'll give us a chance.
Thank you.
You have an appointment, you're saying, for emergency services, right?
Exactly.
Okay. Mr. Underwood, a question on this particular event?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Akers?
Mr. Chairman, I would only like to say, in fact, there have been some people in Lady Smith Fire that have indicated they have a concern about relaxing permanently. I'm sure that may be one of the reasons they went after your meeting. They couldn't come to a unanimous decision as to what they wanted to come out of this. So I'm like Mr. Black. I just think you need to reach out to those people so that they fully understand what you're proposing, what you're asking for, and try to get the input from those people.
Okay.
No, I don't have. Mr. Marmaduke, I think we're good. You're gonna talk to Chief. You catch
Yes,
the other ones. We're gonna work out some things with the Fire Commission so that we're all talking together.
Thank
All right?
you, and that's all we ask.
Thank you very much for your input and your
Okay.
help. Okay, we are gonna have Mr. Curlings. He's not here, so, and my eyesight doesn't deceive me as usual. So we'll move on to appointments. Appointment we could never fill,
The REMS Council. Mr. Chairman, I've talked to Jason Satterwhite to talk to some folks to see if we can get some interest from the volunteer side, unless we have somebody.
When you guys want to volunteer now, since you're here?
I just was pointing to Mr. Carlson to see if he would be interested in serving on this council.
And he can't hear
Bob,
you, so...
don't go
and-
deaf on me.
And he can't hear you, so we'll say yes.
Don't go deaf. Come up front, Bob. Come up front so we can ask you the question. No? All right.
Oh, come on. What's
All
another
right.
iron? All right, do we even know when they, do they meet, they meet quarterly? Every other month? All right, we need, this is the Rappahannock Emergency Services Council Board of Directors. And Mr. Garnett wants to be reappointed, but we still have to replace B.J. Sprouse, whose appointment expires in June. He no longer lives in the county and doesn't volunteer. So we need a volunteer. Oh, Mr. Marmaduke. Mr. Marmaduke? Yeah, you was trying to deaf too. since we have worked for you to make sure we got all of your things in, and you're very happy, we are going to now, I told you I would do you a favor, but I would come and ask you for a favor. Yeah, well, we're going to ask you, if you and Mr. Satterwhite, if you can give us a name, we need somebody to serve on the Rappahannock Emergency Services. So if you guys can come up with a name, get it to us next week or week after next so we have it for our June meeting, I sure appreciate it.
And try to include everybody in the organization as the CEO. Yeah.
We'll get someone. There's a lot.
We're going to be voting on the chief's policies after we take that appointment up. That gives you any incentive. I'm just telling you how the schedule works. Okay? All right, thanks guys for your help. Recreation Advisory Committee. Sorry. Oh, let's do Mr. Garnett. Is there a motion for Mr. Garnett?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Seeley, seconded by Mr. Taylor. Discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously that Mr. Garnett will be reappointed, and we will move to the Recreation Advisory Committee. All of these expire June 30th. All members have indicated a willingness to be reappointed. Is there anyone who would like to provide a replacement or a motion to continue with the same folks?
I make a motion to continue with the same folks that are currently serving.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Mr. Steele, seconded by Mr. Akers to reappoint the Recreation Advisory Committee as presented. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That motion carries unanimously. Mr. Seeley, you have got two Emergency Services Commission and Social Services Boards. So Emergency Services Commission.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to again nominate Mr. John Nunley to the Emergency Services Commission once again.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion made by Mr. Seeley, seconded by Mr. Taylor to reappoint John Nunley as the Bowling Green representative to the Emergency Services Commission. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That motion carries unanimously. Mr. Seeley, Social Services Board.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to nominate Pat Wright. I think she's very qualified for this position and has approached me many times. And with Mr. Lenahan's overloaded schedule, he's decided that he can't meet as frequently as we need to. And he did resign last week.
Second.
Okay, Pat Wright. Second. Motion made by Mr. Seeley, seconded by Mr. Akers to appoint Pat Wright to fill the remainder of the term for Mr. Lanahan. And under their rules, they can only serve 2 terms.
2 terms.
But you're filling a term, so that's like the presidential thing. You can fill a term and then serve 2 terms of your own.
Yes, sir.
All right. All in favor of Ms. Pat Wright for Bowling Green Social Services, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That motion too carries unanimously. All righty. We have consent agenda. A through F. Any item on the consent agenda that board members would like to have pulled?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
item E.
Item E. Baycorp. Line of duty truck. Any others?
Mr. Chairman, I would move the approval of consent agenda as presented with the exception of item E.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Taylor, seconded by Mr. Black to approve agenda items A through D and F. Discussion, just so we'll all know, this is the Whistleblower Act that we held over from before to give the board members a chance to make sure they read it and understood
Mr.
it.
Cullen shaking.
I'm sorry, what? No, D. I'm saying as part of what we're approving. Don't confuse me, I'm confused already. As part of what we're approving, that's the Whistleblower Act that we had before that we had to bring back to read. So A through D and F. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. That motion carries unanimously. And the item pulled is approval of Baycorp Line of Duty Act Trust Agreement. Jimmy, that was you.
Mr. Chairman, I know we talked about this last year. We entered into an agreement, and I guess my first question is, how does this, do we have a cost to this, and how does this change from what we agreed to last year, because it looks like we're changing this year?
I don't remember exactly what you approved last year, other than probably enter into VACORP to run this other than VRS. This trust actually puts a document in place that'll cover your unknown pre-existing conditions that could be out there, because when you took over the Line of Duty Act, there could be things that are eligible that haven't come forward yet from people that may have had some sort of issue multiple years back, that you're taking on this risk. And so they've put this trust in place to manage that risk.
Do we have an associated cost with this now?
No addition.
Mrs. Hatcher says it's in the budget. Mr. Parton says it's no additional cost.
Okay, and then my last question is Article 2. I don't understand, and Mr. Emerson, maybe you can help with Section A, B, C, and D, because it looks like we're appointing somebody to do something, but it's pretty circular how it's being done. Because it's trustee for this, and the trustee appoints the next trustee. If that person's not there, then somebody else appoints a trustee, and it never really defines who the trustee is or where they come from.
Sealy, I don't know without reading through it more carefully.
Mr. Chairman, can we postpone this and give Mr. Emerson a chance to take a look at, because this is really confusing.
I don't think there's any deadline that we have to do it right now. Would you like to, is there a deadline?
There is a deadline, but I can't remember whether it was June. Speak that out.
Deadline is June 30th, Mr. Chairman, so it could be.
We have another meeting.
We have one more meeting to take care of it, yes.
Maybe, Mr. Emerson, while we're on our break, you can look at it. If not, we will postpone it to June 11th.
Thank you.
Okay. All righty. Can we do agenda item number 10? This is fairly quick. Agenda item 10 is basically the homeowners in the Stag Leaguers subdivision, which is right outside of Bowling Green, just on the south side of the bypass, have had some failing septic system. I met with him. Used to be the Bowling Green district before, and now it's not up or not. But I met with them a couple of weeks ago, and the town of Bowling Green, the mayor and the town manager. What they wanted to do was apply for a grant. Unfortunately, the land is in the county, but the county has given the town service rights. So the town is going to apply for the grant. I mean, the town is going to fill the grant out, but the county has to apply for the grant. So basically, we just need permission to apply for the grant. At no cost to the county. No cost to the county.
It's a $30,000 planning grant to allow the preliminary engineering work to be done and a study of the community to determine LMI and turn be able to apply for a construction grant up to maybe $750,000. So that's sort of what we're looking for. According to the town manager, that you can apply for that planning grant at any time. So as soon as we get it in, we can get started.
Motion?
I'll make a motion that we allow the town to apply for the grant using, or we'll apply for the grant for the town system.
They're going to do all the town's going to do all the work. We're going to.
Is that the motion you use, Mr. Cully?
That's good enough. We're just going to put a cover page on there.
Second.
Cover page to say Caroline County. Motion made by Mr. Seeley, seconded by Mr. Black. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. That motion will carry. Got 9 minutes. Is there another one? Probably can't do the radio system in 9 minutes. We can't do, 9, approval of change order number 3 for phase 2 of the Dawn wastewater project. Who's that? Is that Mr. Schiebel or Mr. Parton? Who's this? Oh. Good show.
Mr. Chairman, Eldon James is actually coming at about 7:30, but we'll try to handle it if you want to proceed with it.
We can wait for Mr. James. We can wait for Mr. James. That's fine. Thank you. I was just trying to. be as efficient as possible. We met with the school board, ran a little bit long there, and Mr. Underwood and I have a 7 o'clock kickoff meeting. So we're trying to take our break at 7 to make sure. We're doing a community service, community outreach. Sheriff, you're invited too, or Major Mosier if you would like. I thought we extended that invitation. Some local pastors in the Reedy Church District trying to bring out different areas of the community to bring them together so we can understand each other a little more, at least have a better feeling of what's going on in the county. So I think that's all we have. We won't be able to do anything else. We've done that. We'll just take a break till 7:30. We will be done because we're not going to stay for the whole meeting. We're just going to leave at 7:30. We'll be back at 7:30. So we will adjourn until 7 or recess until 7:30. Okay, so we'll stand in recess. Section of the agenda. Public comment section allows any person in the county who would like to talk regarding any subject to do so. You'll be limited to 3 minutes. But if you would like to come and address the board on any subject that's not a public hearing, feel free to do so. Come to the podium, state your name and your voting district, and you'll have 3 minutes of time. Is there anyone who would like to speak on public comments?
Good evening. Jason Sadaway, Bowling Green District. Chairman, I'd like to just, again, show my support for the Motorola system on the radio system. But the reason I came tonight is to talk about the training standards that the county is implementing, which I feel is a great direction we're heading in, you know, with the grandfather clause to help the older guys and the new guys having the requirements. However, my issue is there is no current schedule of classes in Caroline to get us to that point. For example, the line officer classes that are needed, PICO, STICO, instant safety officer, there aren't any on the county training schedule that is on the website to help us, our volunteers, get to that point. So if we're going to be expected to have this training by the end of this year or at whatever date, it's pertinent that we have this training in-house in Caroline so our volunteers don't have to travel outside the county. So whether that requires scheduling, that also requires funding. So I'm asking for your support in not only funding this, but also getting these classes on the schedule. We have a captain of training that can handle the position of scheduling these classes, but if we don't have them, then how are we going to meet this training standard? That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in the public comment section?
My name is Jack Creasy, and I live in Landor. At the last supervisors meeting, I appealed to have the rules of the Ladysmith Convenience Center, a disposal and recycling site, changed to allow private citizens to take home items they would find useful in their lives, assuming they would take them for their private use only and not for sale at a profit. I hope the board has been able to act on my appeal. If not, I hope they will do so soon. If they have, I hope that the action has been favorable, and if not, I'd like to know the reasoning. I'd also like to know what I might do to appeal that decision if it is negative. In any case, I think it would be useful to do a study of the money that the county receives from the sale of scrap metal and an estimate of what might be lost by allowing private citizens to take home things they would find useful. The board already realizes that citizens might benefit from things that others discard and permits them to take items declared to be too good to throw away. The problem is that under the current rules, the decision as to whether certain things are too good or not must be made by the people who are already throwing them away, and not by the people who would actually like to keep them and use them. What I'm asking, in effect, is that the private citizens who want to use these things be let in on the decision about how good they are. The center has a treasure trove of spare parts and pieces that individual citizens might think were too good to throw away because they themselves have a use for them. In the past, before the rules were tightened, I found lawn carts, fencing, piping, small wheels, wagons, and whole bicycles and other toys that didn't make it into the separate too good site, but were very good and valuable in my mind and for my needs. I sincerely hope that I and other Caroline citizens can return to those happy days. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak in the public comment section?
Good evening. Linwood Broadus, Bowling Green District. Deer season. It appears that the Department of Game and Inland Fisheries is planning on cutting our number of either sex days. Those of us on our end of the county, we're still dealing with deer damage. The way they run our season seemed to be a yo-yo. One time they give us days, and then they take days away, and the population seems to be fluctuating. If they could give us a stable system, what we would like to see is at least give us every Saturday either sex days, and the last 12 days. The justification for cutting the doe days this coming season is because of disease. Pretty much they let the population get real high and disease moved in and kind of took care of it. But we're still dealing, like I said, with damage. And it's going to, if we lose more days, the population is going to increase and the damage is just going to get worse. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bronner. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in the public comment section? Is there anyone else who would like to speak during the public comment section? Is there anyone else who would like to speak during the public comment section? All right, hearing none, we will declare the public comment section closed. Mr. Satterwhite, I believe the county did add in this year's budget or next year's budget, starting July 1, more funding for training. Again, that's a chief and volunteer communication, so I want to make sure you did and we'll double check with the chief to make sure there's training budgets in there matching the schedule, but you guys let us know if it's there and we'll work to address it. Mr. Creasy makes a good point, and someone else has recently stopped, so can we ask Mr. Schiebel? Okay, I thought he was working on it. So we are working on that too good to throw away concept. The Ladysmith, Mr. Akers, the Ladysmith convenience site is crowded though, isn't it? Okay.
It is crowded, it's a small area. We've not been able to expand that site because of lack of funds. Very small area, a lot of traffic. Many days you go through there and you see traffic back up onto Green Road just trying to get in.
Everybody except the main center has a small site that couldn't afford that, so we may ask Mr. Schiebel to look at maybe one Saturday a month at the Bowling Green Collection Center. If you've got something too good to throw away, you bring it over there, or when we eventually expand Ladysmith, that could be a site later. But we are looking at that particular too good to throw away kind of issue, and Mr. Creasy, I wish we could do things, in a week or two. Sometimes it's hard, as people in the audience will tell you. The other one, Mr. Broadus, I'm not sure what we can do with deer season, since that's all basically the state. So we will pass those comments on. All right, we have a public hearing. Go ahead, Mr. Fincher. Public hearing. An ordinance to amend the Code of Caroline County by repealing and replacing Chapter 68 noise to remove limitations that are inconsistent with Chapter 49 festivals and Chapter 50 fireworks, and eliminate portions deemed inconsistent with state law. Mr. Fincham.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, your public hearing tonight is a proposed amendment to the county code to repeal and replace Chapter 68, which is the noise ordinance, to remove limitations and inconsistencies between Chapter 49, which is the festivals chapter, and Chapter 50, which is fireworks, as well as to eliminate portions of the old ordinance deemed to be inconsistent with state law or would not pass legal standards. The board actually referred this issue to staff last summer, if I recall correctly. We had gone through the amendments to the fireworks chapter, and at that time, I think everybody recognized that there were inconsistencies between the different chapters in the code and permits that were issued either by the board, such as the festival permits, and or fireworks permits issued under the authority of the fire chief. The proposed amendments that you have before you tonight are in part an attempt to eliminate those differences between the various chapters of the county code, and as you said, to address other inconsistencies in state law. The first reading was conducted at the March 12th, 2013 Board of Supervisors meeting, at which time you forwarded this to public hearing tonight.
Questions, Mr. Fincham, at this time? No questions? Thank you, Mr. Fincham. We will declare the public hearing open. Is there anyone who would like to speak regarding this matter? And when you come to speak, if you would please again state your name and your voting district.
Yes, hi, I'm David Best in the Port Royal District. One of the reasons that we live in a rural area, rural preservation area, is because we bought that property for a reason. I think most of the people in the county that live in a rural area bought their property because they wanted the peace and quiet and the solitude of that. As in most of our areas, when we bought our property, they were in a noise-abated area, like an agriculture or a rural preservation, where they have some controls over the noise levels. It's because of animals and other factors. Just because somebody got a special permit or a special exception, there's no reason to throw out the noise ordinance. They should still have to abide within those special permits within the same construct. It basically sends a bad message to everybody in the county that, hey, you know, my expectations, what I bought this property for any number of years ago, doesn't mean anything anymore. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Best. Is there anyone who would like to speak regarding this matter?
Good evening. Karen Lambert, District. Here, I guess I echo a lot of what Mr. Best said. When we moved here, we used the zoning as assurances, and I understand those things can change. And in our instance, a special exemption was made, and an area was rezoned. But we were assured by the board at the time that we would still have ways to live the best we could. I better look at what I wrote. But anyway, so like with the fireworks, we were told there would not be fireworks. Within 2 years, we had the fireworks. Then we were told that it would be all right because we still had the noise ordinance that we could rely on, that they would have to meet those requirements, that they could not exceed those. We also were told that with the festivals, that they could not exceed those. They had to stay within the parameters of the rural zoning. Now you're taking those away. And you're not asking us to do it just once a year, twice a year. There's no limit on it. The fireworks at this point in time where you have to listen to for up to 4 times a year. But with this new change in the zoning ordinance, you're asking us to give you carte blanche, that anytime someone wants to have a festival, a music festival, any type of activity, if you sign off on it, then we have to absorb the noise, that we have no say. And the times that we're going to be asked this are going to be the same times that we want to enjoy our property. We want to go out there on Memorial Day and have a nice, quiet evening. We don't want to have to worry about a music festival. We don't want to know that there is absolutely no level. You've stated that they don't have to abide by the rural preservation decibels. You don't state any level. There is no limit. And I think you're making a bad choice by not having any limit, and a bad choice by this, and I think you need to look at the state laws to make sure you're not compromising those, because even the state has decibel levels for rural preservation, and I don't know how what you plan to do affects the legality of that. So, whatever.
Thank you, Ms. Lambert. Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
Good evening. I'm Dr. Patrick Newstadter from the Port Royal District. I have an interest in letting off fireworks and have been here to some hearings before. I have come to commend you for your common sense, and Mike Fincham. It doesn't make a lot of sense to issue a permit for fireworks and then have a restriction that virtually allows you not to have noise, or not to have noise that any firework pretty much will exceed. But of course you have to remember that it's momentary, admittedly possibly repeated, but not for very long. There are quite marked restrictions on the ordinance. So I would urge you to pass this.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Best?
Tammy Best, Port Royal. I just want to remind you guys that human hearing is damaged at 85 decibels. Fireworks are 185 decibels or higher. Now you're putting my hearing and my health at risk by changing the noise ordinance.
Thank you, Ms. Best. Is there anyone else who would like to speak regarding this matter? Is there anyone else who would like to speak regarding this matter? Anyone else who would like to speak regarding this matter? Hearing none, the public hearing is declared closed. Board at this time have any questions of Mr. Fincham? Mr. Black? Mr. Seeley?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Underwood?
I do, Mr. Chairman.
You do?
Mr. Fincham, if you could come back for a second. The rationale for our changes is that we move closer to state guidelines by eliminating the conflict. Is that correct?
That was one. We had some sections of the ordinance that would not pass. There are court cases out there, and there was language in our ordinance that was directly in conflict to the findings in those court cases. So it was to address those issues to make sure that we met the statutory requirements.
So we're being proactive, is that correct?
In that sense, yes, sir. And it was also, as has been stated, we have discrepancies within our own ordinances. In theory, under our old fireworks ordinance, you could have had multiple applications for a fireworks display.
Right.
The board saw fit to reduce that number down to 4 times a year. With the aerial display of fireworks, there are going to be inconsistencies that are unavoidable between the fireworks ordinance and the noise ordinance. And this is designed to clean that up, or to address those discrepancies, those differences.
Comparing this ordinance to the state when we look at this compared to what the state has in place, state regulation, that's what I was looking for. If we did a comparison between our ordinance and the state regulation,
what would we find?
Well, what we did, we actually had the county attorney to review this legally to make sure that we were not running afoul of anything.